What is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Destination the Show. This is Jamie Cameron from a dingy hotel room in Rhode Island, joined by Jeremy Nygaard. What's going on, man?
When you told me that you were a fan of the Real Housewives of Rhode Island, I didn't know you were actually going to go there.
Yep, once a month, buddy.
I'm good. I'm good. It's nice when baseball's back, and I'm still a fan of the NBA season. March Madness was fun,
Yep.
but it's kind of that nice time of the year where things all are good to watch when there's no NFL, right? There's the NFL season, and then there's the other seasons, and this is kind of the prime time of that other season, in my opinion. So the weather's going to be nice, hopefully at some point here, and the baseball weather will be fun. Power went out at the home opener.
That was crazy. An absolutely crazy situation. Although I gotta say, I have enjoyed since the Twins really leading into the like cheap beer marketing. Did you see they were tweeting out like do the 9x9 challenge for $27 today? That's funny. I
Yeah.
appreciate that like slightly more minor league approach to marketing baseball. I'm here for it.
Yeah. It was interesting because the concession stands all go down, right? Anything that's on the perimeter of the stadium, like in the concession stands, they're down. But the handheld things worked, and the $2 beer lines got really long because those were on the handheld.
I bet they did. I bet
But
they
I
did.
mean, the hot dogs, those were gone because they had the $2 hot dogs, the pregame stuff. Hot dogs
Yep.
were gone, like they were just gone. Um, and I mean, if you're going to give $2 beers, that's awesome. I'm not going to complain too much, but I'm not a Bud Light guy, and so I will choke down a $2 Bud Light. But give me any other beer to drink. But it was fun. But that's what you have to do, right? You have to find a
Yes.
reason for
100%.
people to show up to the games if the baseball is not going to be the entertaining part. So 24,000 cans were sold on opening day.
Impressive.
The markup on those is probably, when you buy them in enormous bulk, I don't know, 50 cents a piece. So you're still making 36 grand, which is really a drop in the bucket when it comes to baseball budgets. But it's 36 grand you'd have without that going on, right? So, and they got a grand slam from Tristan Gray and a win,
as we all expected.
and we bailed out and got to our car right when heavy rain started, and now they look like an actual professional baseball team.
Now they're beating up on Tariq Skubal, so
yeah, because Gleeman's talked about how awful they are against left-handed pitching, which is true. And now they're doing the thing. So this is though the part where it's going to get interesting. So we're watching. I mean, as we're recording, it's the fourth or fifth inning. The Twins in the fifth inning with a lead now have to figure out how to get through the sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth inning with a bullpen. So just keep scoring runs, right? Beat teams 12-10 all the way to October. So yeah, good times anyway. But yeah, we got plenty of stuff to talk about, so we don't have to talk about this particular game or the opening day anymore.
We had so many things to talk about. Excited to dig in. Just this time last week, I've got to give a quick plug for last week's episode. We had a chance to sit down with Dason Hill, Twins left-handed pitching prospect. The day after that interview, he was added to Baseball America's top 100 prospect list. So I like to think that we're directly responsible for that. But that was awesome. And then we have another guest coming up next week, actually. So we're kind of back. We did a terrible job of being consistent this spring. But college baseball is really in the thick of conference play. We have a full slate of minor league games every day. And I texted you earlier today and said, like, Eduardo Beltre, Quentin Young, Merrick Houston all like hit a home run within 5 minutes of each other. That's exactly what I'm here for.
Yeah, like if I fell asleep and woke up just randomly on any given day of the year, I'm gonna know what type of time of the year it is just based on text from you. So if it links to Twitter, it's college baseball season, right? And so today is it was college baseball, it was minor league baseball, it was fun tools online, which we'll also talk about, I'm sure.
Well,
so Jason Hill's great, and next week's guest, who's a repeat, will be great because he's great every other time. So, lots of fun stuff coming up.
All right, so let's quickly get the housekeeping stuff out the way, then we'll jump into our theme for the day. So, ways that you can support the show: you can like and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform of choice. You can find all of our stuff on YouTube. The handle there is @Destination the Show. If you want to send us questions, you can do that on Twitter. The handle is @DTS_pod1 on Blue Sky, @Destination the Show, or send us an email, destinationtheshow@gmail.com. We're going to spend the majority of our time today talking about minor league rosters. Yes, sir.
I got to say one thing before that. I got to give a plug out.
Okay.
Opening day, and I text you this immediately after it happened. Opening day, I'm sitting third base line, a few rows up, and there's a lot of traffic up and down. And guy has walked by me a couple times. He stops, puts his hand out, and says, "Jeremy?" I say, "Yeah, man, what's up?" He says, "Listen to the show every week. Love you guys.
Perfect.
You do great work." We had a little shake, appreciation.
That's wild.
So that was neat because it has happened before when I was with my wife, and she just gets super unbelievable.
I bet she absolutely hates it.
Yeah. And then so I was sitting next to my son, and he's like, "Dad, what just happened?" And so it wasn't as annoying to him as it would be to my wife. I said, "It's a good thing your mom wasn't here, because she would have not been there's no humor for her." But that was cool. So it's nice.
That's awesome.
Whenever we have a chance to chat with people that listen, it's always fun. So shout out to dude that stopped me and appreciates what we do. We'll keep doing it. Whether people appreciate it or not, we'll keep doing it.
What are the odds that one of our 57 listeners was also at opening day in the same section as you? Okay. So we're gonna we were gonna dig into minor league roster previewing last week, but we kind of secured this Jason Hill conversation at the last second. So we're doing it this week, and we'd originally planned to do it in advance of the season, but this is kind of nice because we can take a look at how some guys have started, guys who are off to hot starts, slow starts, whatever, and talk through the rosters with a little bit of numbers to back them up. Before we do that, we're got to cover some quick news and notes. And I would have just called this draft bonus pool talk, but you always think of random crazy nonsense that you want to bring up. So I wanted to make sure that there's, you feel like there's space for you. But did you see that the Twins bonus pool has been set for the 2026 MLB draft?
I did. Moments after we shut down last week, I think it was that evening. And I saw it, and I was not going to distract you the rest of your day with it. So when you text me, I act surprised because I had already seen it. But
brutal. Exposed.
So it's always neat to see that, but it doesn't really have meaning until you really dig into it, which you will do for all of us. So I guess talk us through some of the things that you found notable.
Yeah. So just quick highlights for the good of the group. Twins have slot values usually increase somewhere between 2 and 5%. They increased 2.5% from last year. Twins have the 4th highest overall bonus pool in baseball. It is a shade under $17 million. The teams in front of them are the Pirates, the Rays, and the White Sox. 2 of those are picking directly in front of the Twins, of course, in the first round. I think maybe the most helpful way to talk about it quickly is to just talk about what are their top 100 picks and the associated slots there, and use that as kind of a jumping off point. So first round, 3rd pick, $9.75 million, $9.75 million slot value for the 3rd overall pick, which is essentially what the record bonus in the draft ever has been. So I want to come back to that with you in just a second. Their 2nd round pick, that's 43rd overall, $2.3 million. That's a hefty bonus too. I would give people a kind of marker of $2.5 million is what kind of a lot of the better preps ask for, something in that range. So that's an interesting figure. And they've got their comp B pick, 74th overall. That's $1.138 million. And then the third round pick, 79th overall, which is 1.052 million. So, yeah, I guess, I mean, the most notable thing, obviously, Jeremy, is that 9.975 million for the third overall pick. And as I've been, and I will be annoying and give like a little plug. If you guys want more in-depth bonus pool chat, I did like a 30-minute like audio post at Limestone Pipeline breaking down the bonus pool in much more depth. That's a huge sum of money, and I find it quite unlikely that they will spend all of it on a single player. So what are your thoughts around just that number 3 bonus and how it might end up getting used?
So I should have written this down, but the all-time record is not yet 10 million, right?
Correct.
So I think, is it 9.25 or somewhere
it's around there? Yeah, it's right around what the Twins have for the third overall pick.
So the Twins, if they use their full slot, would be momentarily a new record, because Cholowski's going to set the record. So I think it's very fair to say that it's not going. The Twins aren't going to, because it's just never happened before for anybody. And so that's just kind of the built-in benefit of drafting that high, is you're going to be able to use some of that slot to sign somebody else. The big question is, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit today, how much of that do you save, and then what do you do with it? And the Twins, for all of their times in history, and there's been so many times that they've been rumored to, like, oh, we're gonna take somebody downboard and then we're gonna do something else crazy. And they've always played it relatively straight, where they've shaved off a little bit of money and then used it to pay a prep pitcher a little bit more. And it's usually been like a little bit here, a little bit there. It's never been hey, if we save $1.5 million here and combine it there, let's see if we can essentially trade down from 3 to 15 and 25. Right. So I think they'll do something similar to what they've done before, and they'll get a couple prep arms in the mix. I do really think, and this gets off topic a little bit, with the NIL becoming more and more of a factor in everything, I'm curious to see how the next agreement's collectively bargained, because I don't think teams are going to like drafting a guy in the 60s thinking they could get him for $2.5 million and then losing it. Hard slotting, I'm not sure if that's the answer. Trading draft picks would certainly be fun. But I think there's a whole new conversation with different ideas that we'll talk about, throughout the next couple of years. But I do think that this is going to be one of the last opportunities for teams to do what the Twins hopefully will do. Obviously, the teams ahead of them will do too. The big question is, who's number 3, right?
That is the big question. And so, just a couple of more thoughts on top of what you already shared. I did go back and look at the last few drafts for teams that were in the Twins position. That is to say, 3rd or 4th pick, just to see, like, generally what has the trend been. And it backed up what we thought, which is that the only team that goes over a slot when they're picking that high is the Rockies. They did it with Ethan Holiday. They did it with Charlie Condon. It's the Rockies. The most typical approach we see for picks like 3 and 4 is you get moderate, what I would call moderate savings on slot. So somewhere from a quarter to a max of like $750,000 in savings, depending on the caliber of player that you take. A useful kind of proxy situation was actually the Tigers in 2023, right? So they were picking 3rd overall. They saw Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz go off the board before them. They had their choice of Walker Jenkins, Max Clark, or Wyatt Langford. They took Clark. They've saved $600,000. And then they added basically all of that savings to their comp A pick to draft some prep infield kid named Kevin McGonigal. So there's kind of one approach which you alluded to, which is maybe the Twins save $500,000 and kind of divvy that out in the 74th pick and the 79th pick, and you get a couple of shots at a guy like Dason Hill, like a prep pitcher version and a prep hitter version. The other interesting possibility is they take a big swing on a prep player, whether that's a bat or an arm, with their second round pick with whatever they save. If they draft a college bat like Von Lackey or even Jackson Flora, I think you could potentially get big savings. Or if you want like mega savings, potentially someone like AJ Gracia, Chris Hakopian, you could be saving many millions of dollars, I think, if you do that. So super interesting. Can't wait to see how it plays out. Okay, let's dig in, dude, and let's start talking through the minor league rosters here. So just a general format, right? We are going to keep this really grounded in like who are the prospects at each roster. We do not want to gloss over people. However, there's so much to cover. We're really just going to focus on what you might call like the top 30 guys. So we're going to go from the top of the system to the bottom, start with St. Paul, work our way down to Fort Myers. I'll list off some notable prospects by position group, and then we'll just talk through a couple of the notable guys, and I'll basically pitch it to you and say, who do you want to dig in on? And then each of us is going to pick one guy to kind of click, like who's your kind of your bet? Who are you saying this guy's definitely going to have a great year? And then who potentially is someone on that roster that you feel like might be flying a little bit under the radar or maybe not getting the attention that they deserve, that we should be paying attention to this year. So let's start with St. Paul, who MLB Pipeline called the second most talented team in all of minor league baseball. Outfield, notable prospects: Walker Jenkins, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Gabriel Gonzalez, Kyler Fedko, and Alan Roden, if we can call Alan Roden a prospect. In the infield, Kalen Culpepper. And pitchers of note: Connor Prelip, Kendry Rojas, Zebby Matthews, Andrew Morris, John Klein, and Marco Raya. Anyone stand out to you, Jeremy? Any surprises? Anyone you want to kind of dig in on first for the St. Paul Saints?
Not any individuals, but I do think, when you turn on the Twins and there's a whole bunch of random names of guys that it's like journeyman type, not minor league signing types, kind of fringe 40 guys that are now getting regular playing time or are on the St. Paul roster. It's not super easy to get excited about the Twins, right? Luke Keeschel, up and coming. Yep. Then you have the Byron Buxtons of the world. We all want Royce Lewis to be awesome. Ryan Jeffers is solid. The reason that we can handle that, though, is organization-wise, you just listed a whole bunch of guys that are hopefully productive future major leaguers. And when you look at a typical AAA roster, it's like 75% of them are the 4A types of players. Yep. And on this roster, that's just not the case. You have 5 outfielders that could be maybe not major league starters, but guys that could very easily plug into this current roster. You have Kalen Culpepper, who will be the starting shortstop at some point in the summer, like hopefully for the next 6 years. And then a whole bunch of exciting pitchers, which, again, the average pitching age of St. Paul is older than the average pitching age of the Twins, right? Or it's very close. There's more major league service time on the St. Paul bullpen than there is in the Twins bullpen. So there's just there's a lot of stuff going on individually. Yeah, there's some real fun prospects, but I think the story is collectively there are a dozen guys that could be up on the 26-man roster at the end of the year and be future really good to serviceable players. And that's what makes this roster as fun as it is.
Agreed, 100%. And I do want to dig in on a couple of guys, and I'm going to do this strategically before player numbers are updated from St. Paul's terrible offensive effort today, because they got shut out today and had like 1 hit in a game in Toledo. But there are 2 guys, I think, who are kind of noteworthy. A lot of guys have had solid starts. On the offensive side, I would call out Erod, who was out of the lineup today through sickness. That was a little ripple of panic as people thought maybe he was being called up after he was scratched from the lineup. I do think an April call up feels so unlikely to me for any of these guys. And if we're talking about an outfielder, Roden is going to be first.
100%.
Let's talk about Culpepper though. I'm just impressed by his start, right? So this is before today's game, so take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, with any of these guys, super tiny sample. 294, 368, 559, a 134 WRC plus. He's already hit 3 home runs in 8 games. And Jeremy, what did we talk about last year was like his one like big key to success or like kind of red flag about his like batted ball profile was?
You tell me.
Ground balls. Can he? Yeah, ground balls, 100%. Can he elevate a little bit more with a little bit more consistency? And last year, Cedar Rapids, 52% ground ball rate. Last year in AA, 48% ground ball rate. Like we think of that 55% ground ball rate as elite if you're a pitcher. You don't want that as a hitter. Right. So far in the early going, Kalen Culpepper is running a 37% ground ball rate in St. Paul, which I think is super encouraging.
If he hits like 3 ground balls in a row, it's up to like 50%.
This is true. This is true. But what can we do but talk about the samples that we have? Right. The other guy I just want to call out is Connor Prelip. Made 2 appearances. The most recent one in relief was particularly impressive. 7.1 innings so far, a 266 FIP, a 123 ERA. He's striking out a very cool 33.3% of hitters, walking far too many. But I will say, dude, a lot of these minor league affiliates have been subject to miserable weather in the early going. Like It's been snowing in St. Paul, in Cedar Rapids the other day. It was like gale force winds in the outfield. It's crazy, but those guys are off to great starts.
So one thing that I'd add, and I look at this, and I've said this before, like age comparative to the rest of the league. Or at least in this case, age comparative to the rest of the roster. Walker Jenkins, we all know, youngest guy on the team, just turned 21. Then you have, and this surprised me a little bit, Gabriel Gonzalez is just a little over 22, second youngest hitter on the team. And then Emmanuel Rodriguez just turned 23. And then Kalen Culpepper, not much older, also 23. And so those are the youngest 4. And I guess if you would have just had me blind sort them, I wouldn't have put Gonzalez as the second youngest one, because I feel like even though he was acquired in trade, he's just been around forever. And so
that's the deal with international guys though, right? Like they've been around forever, but it's because they've been around since they were like 17.
Right. But I mean, Emmanuel Rodriguez, similar age, and like he's been around the system, he's been hurt. But I mean, we've seen Gonzalez be like globally ranked, fall off, have a bad year, come back. Like there's just been a lot more of this. And that seems like for a 22-year-old, I mean, if he debuts at 22 this summer, that's crazy. I don't know that he profiles as a first division regular, right? I don't know that he does. Is there the potential for that? Sure. But he doesn't have like that loud skill set that Rodriguez certainly does. Jenkins certainly could. We've seen Roden hit really well in AAA.
Roden has no business being at AAA at all.
I would 100% agree.
Which we've talked about before. So
26, like that's just it's weird to me. So, but there are 5 really good outfielders. They've been playing, some of them I think a little bit at first base.
Gabby Gonzalez getting starts at first base even, which is interesting.
So that to me, just the age of Gonzalez, because I think he'll hit really well, and it's gonna be like, well, yeah, he's been around forever. Dude's 22, and if he does it at AAA, why wouldn't you give him a shot? So, I do really. I mean, that's one thing. Looking at the St. Paul pitching roster, this Brevia guy that they signed, oldest guy in the organization. Did you know that? He's the oldest.
I didn't know he was the oldest guy in the organization, but
he is almost 36 years old, born in 1990. So they have nobody in the organization born in the 80s anymore. It's we passed that.
I want to talk about it.
Looking at the rest of that pitching roster, John Klein is 24, Mark Arai is almost 24, Andrew Morris is 24, Prelip just turned 25, and then Zebby Matthews is 25, along with Corey Lewis, who's injured. Rojas, youngest one, 23 and a half, on the injured list as well. So those are the names that you mentioned. 6 of them all could very well be in the majors and contributing. And I think when you look at the Twins bullpen, like there's going to need to be help, right? We've seen one move so far with Klein going down and the kid from Miami getting called up. But I think we're going to see that pipeline be used frequently. And those guys are the ones that are options. So those are the ones that you can bring up without making a 40-man move. Even though the Brevias, the Bowmans, Altavia, and Drew Smith all have more than 5 years of major league service time. So there's just a lot of options to help a bullpen that we know isn't going to be great. But yeah, I think there's this team collectively, when you have a really young hitting core in AAA, they're going to take their lumps. And I don't know how many wins the Saints will have, because they're definitely going to be the minor league team, right? We're going to take you, we're going to take you, we're going to take you. But there is a ton of current talent and future talent on that team.
Yep. I got to ask you quickly, Jeremy, before we move to Wichita, your pick to click one guy and then one guy who you think might be flying a little bit under the radar on the Saints roster before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gonzalez is going to be that guy that flies under the radar a little bit, because he's probably the fourth outfield that we talk about for sure, and one of the youngest. And I feel like taking any of these guys as the pick to click seems kind of cheap, right? It's like former first round pick, former minor league player of the year, 26-year-old who should be in the major leagues. But I'm hoping, and this is my fingers crossed, I'm hoping that Kyler Fedko has a repeat of last year. That's kind of far down the list of maybe who can be productive. But if he can go 2020 in AAA, he's going to give himself a chance to be a Major League Baseball player somewhere. And I'm hopeful for that. So he's my optimistic pick to click, and we'll see what happens. Do you want to talk pitchers too, or just one total?
Just one total, I think. Otherwise, we'll probably get down a wormhole digging into too many players or more players than we have time for. The nice thing about Fedko too is the versatility. Like, he can run. He's a good defender in the outfield, or he's played some first base. And so he's a guy who you could actually see sitting on the bench and playing, kind of that Deshaun Kersey role, right, of like a solid glove first outfield type that they kind of have James Outman doing, but James Outman,
he can go away,
hasn't shown any value. But we're actually gonna take a quick break, quick commercial break here, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere, y'all. We are back after a quick commercial break, rounding out our breakdown of the St. Paul Saints roster. I'll give you quickly, Jeremy, my pick to click and under the radar guy. I'm going all in on Erod. You said it was kind of cheap to go for a top prospect, but I don't care. I'm doing it because he hasn't been on the field, and this is the year that I'm hoping he finally is able to kind of right that, ironically, on the day where he was scratched from the lineup for being sick. And then my under the radar guy is maybe a little bit of a cheat also. I'm going Kendry Rojas. And here's why. So he just completed a rehab start in Fort Myers. He'll be back with the Saints shortly. I think it was like a minor hamstring thing. But Rojas's stuff was so impressive to me in spring. And a lot of people saw him down the stretch last year and they're like, this dude sucks. He's not getting good results. But if you look at his minor league track record, he was just basically thrown into AAA. And so I just think if you give this kid a little bit of time to figure it out, he's absolutely major league caliber arm talent. From the left side, same deal as Prelip. I think you give him a nice long runway, he's going to put himself in the mix for the majors by the end of the year. You don't get 98, 99 from the left side all that often, making it look as easy as he makes it look. And Dason Hill, called him out as some of the most impressive stuff in the system when he was on with us last week. So who am I to argue with that?
Good point.
All right, let's move on to Wichita, dude. So a little bit less of a loaded roster. I think the theme here is like prove it guys, or guys who maybe are trying to bounce back a little bit. Notable outfield prospects, Kalai Rosario, who maybe could feel a little bit hard done by having played 197 games at AA already before this year. Henry Mendez, who came over from the Harrison Bader trade. Billy Amick and Kyle DeBarge headline the infield. Notable prospects at catcher, they have Ricardo Olivar, who's kind of needs to do it over a year in AA. And then the pitching depth at this level, not quite as interesting yet. And I say that because it's likely that someone will kind of emerge and become an interesting guy. But Ryan Gallagher, who came over in the Willie Castro trade from the Cubs, and then Jose Olivares and CJ Culpepper are also arms of note on that pitching staff. So any names in particular here, Jeremy, that stand out to you? Any surprises? Anyone you want to start digging into first?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle DeBarge and Billy Amick from the college side are both guys to watch. 23, 22 years old. And then Henry Mendez, like you mentioned, I think he was a great return for Harrison Bader for a couple of months. Yep. And he's, again, only 22 years old. Kalai Rosario, almost 24, has no business being in AA.
Really doesn't.
I wonder if at some point the Twins will look to deal an outfielder for a bullpen arm, and maybe not like a major league ready or established, but to break up that logjam somehow, because it isn't like, in my opinion, a remove one log and it's unjammed, right? This is like a significant jam where Rosario just doesn't deserve to be down there. The ripple effect, though, beyond that isn't huge. I don't feel like outfield wise. Jose Salas is still only 22 years old, almost 23. And he's still moving up. Like, he had some really, 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 really bad stretches. Still in the organization, and so, like, it would be pretty easy to just keep a guy, like, suppress the movement. He is the second youngest guy on the roster. Third youngest hitter on the roster. Only older than Mendez and DeBarge. But, I think Kyle DeBarge is going to be someone that we just don't talk about enough, being that he was drafted pretty high. His tools just, they're not, again, the super loud, he's going to hit 30 home runs. He'll steal a bunch of bases. Is he, I use the term first division regular. I don't know that he is, but I do think that he will provide depth and flexibility in where he plays. So he's kind of my under the radar guy. And I'll let you say anything you want about the hitters before I move on.
Yeah. No, DeBarge is definitely an interesting one, and we should talk about him for a second. And I wish I'd done my prep work because I could have pulled up some visuals here. But he came back this season with a completely different batting stance. He is now in this much more crouched position with his left shoulder almost turned kind of inwards. And it just looks like he's trying to minimize what needs to happen before he gets into his load and into his swing. And I'm really interested to monitor how he does. He's off to a good start. Already has a home run, walking a little bit more. I mean, this is 3-4 games, so it's pretty meaningless. But DeBarge was another guy last year who struggled a little bit with an elevated ground ball rate. And Kyler Fedko is a guy who took off when he got with Andrew Kresge, who's one of the Wichita hitting instructors last year, and really developed this skill set of pulling the ball in the air. and was able to do it with much more success. DeBarge is someone who I'm kind of wondering if that same trajectory is there for him. He's also swinging significantly less, so potentially doing some work on his approach. Obviously, you need to see a little bit of a bigger sample here, but to your point, this is the guy you want to be in that kind of infield utility role, almost like infield version of Fedco. A ton of speed, some solid defense. What did he steal? 60 bags or so last year. And I think he went around 30 before he got caught. And hilariously, his first steal attempt this year, he got thrown out immediately.
66 last year.
66. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can steal 30 bases in the majors, and we are bemoaning watching Victor Caratini try to go from first to third base in the majors and get thrown out by like 20 feet. So let's lean into the speed. DeBarge is a good one. I also do want to talk about Billy Amick. He hit his second home run of the season.
Okay.
We do. Hold on. Let me get the caveat.
Okay.
The first home run was hilarious. It was maybe a single that the outfielder tried to make a play on. It went under his glove. It dribbled all the way to the wall. And let me tell you, dude, if you haven't seen it, you guys should go watch it. The effort that the outfielder put into like running and retrieving the ball was 20 to 30% tops. It was a casual jog back to retrieve the ball. And Billy Amick is not super fast. Anyway, he motored around the bases for an inside the park home run. He had a legit home run today, 107 miles per hour off the bat to the opposite field, a legit laser. We talked about him a lot last year. Like, oh, that was really disappointing. Like, he should have crushed high A. It was also true that he wasn't really healthy at any point last year. He did not look good at all in the Arizona Fall League. I wonder if he's finally healthy entering the year. He's another guy who, again, like, boy, could the Twins use a functional first baseman in the big leagues. So I guess I will pick Billy Amick as my pick to click, because while I have major doubts about the skill set and the bat to ball skills in particular, the Twins need someone with this skill set on their major league roster. And I know that has nothing to do with anything, but for that reason, I desperately want Billy Amick to succeed and have a good year and kind of bounce back from what was a disappointing 2025.
I figured you were going the Amick route, so I don't know that I would have anyway. I just knew that was coming from you. My pick to click is coming on the pitching side, okay. And I'm just going to go through some ages here. The youngest pitcher on the roster is Alejandro Hidalgo, who they got, I believe, from the Angels in a trade. Not even 23 years old yet. Kind of someone that has been under the radar, but still continues to move up. Then at the 23-year-olds, they have Jose Olivares, who's starting the season on the injured list, and Ryan Gallagher, who they traded for. Gallagher came from the Cubs, so that was the Castro deal.
Yep.
And Gallagher's my pick to click for this team. I think he's going to be very solid. Probably not like put up numbers that, any given start that you'll be like, wow, he just pitched 7 shutout innings. But I think over the course of a month or a couple months, it's just going to be solid start after solid start where he's striking out about a guy an inning, not walking too many, not giving up a lot of runs, where it's just like he puts his team in a position to win. And maybe doesn't ever enter that top group for pitching prospects, but at least someone that you're like, he's a guy that we have to consider a potential part of this future. I'd love to say the same thing about CJ Culpepper. He's 24 years old. Spencer Bengard's 24 years old. Ty Langenberg is 24 years old. But Gallagher, to me, is the guy that I think is probably the most likely, maybe not most likely to make the majors out of this group, but I think the most likely to have a shot at the rotation. I don't think that's his future. And I think he probably ultimately will be a bullpen guy, but I like the prospect. He is going to be a top 20-ish prospect and ultimately moves up when he needs to and gets an opportunity. Will be in spring training, I'm assuming, next year with the Twins. I don't think he's got another year before he need to be added to the 40-man. So just a guy that someone to watch, and I think he'll be a good player for the Wind Surge.
Do you know who Gallagher is? I'm going to give you a comp now because you love a comp. Just in terms of, this is a production comp for me. Ryan Gallagher is like Andrew Morris a few years behind, where the ceiling is back end of the rotation, 4 or 5 guy. He doesn't necessarily have quite the same caliber of like swing and miss stuff. Although Gallagher is a very unique look. It's this like very high release, like Trey Savage type arm slot situation going on. But that's the kind of production comp, I think, where it's like, mid 3s ERAs in the upper minors, 8 strikeouts per 9, not too many walks, although he did struggle to throw strikes in his first start. He looked a little nervous, honestly. But yeah, that's a good shout, Gallagher. I like that.
And I do think it's easier to look at a 6'3" pitcher and say, yeah, you got a chance to be a starter or a back half of the bullpen guy versus a 6-foot starter in Andrew Morris. So I know you said production comp, but Gallagher's got that tool. He's got some height to him, some length. So, and he's way over the top, which tells me, and you can dig into it when we have more data, but when someone comes over the top, if they're already long, like it looks different. The release point makes it harder. So, that's my guy there. Did you give us 2 names here for this team?
Amick is my pick to click. I guess my under the radar guy is Jose Olivares. You mentioned he's starting the season on the IL. I mean, his stuff when he's on, he's absolutely electric. And, like many pitchers, strikes can be the problem there. Right? If we look at his walk rate in high A last year, it was close to 15%. That screams relief pitcher. But he's starting upper 90s, despite walking. What is that? 5.5 guys per 9. He had a 3.57 FIP, a 4.38 ERA, which is not a disaster as a 23-year-old in high A. It's just the stuff that excites me. And so that's the kind of guy who I say, while you're developing, I'm sure you can continue to start or piggyback or do whatever, but you might be destined for a 1-inning role if you're going to make it to the majors. And he certainly has the arm talent to make that happen. So he'll be my under the radar guy for AA, I think. Okay, let's move on and talk about Cedar Rapids. This is also a really interesting roster. I do like this one quite a bit. Notable names in the outfield: Brandon Winokur, who we should touch on. I think he was maybe one guy who we were like, I wonder where he'll start, where everyone else felt fairly obvious. Jacob McCombs, I'm calling out because he's a 2025 draftee, the only one pretty much who's starting at Cedar Rapids of the hitters, former UC Irvine player. Infielders of note, Merrick Houston and Rain Doncone. Catchers of note, Eduardo Tait and Kadeem Zhao, surely the best catching prospect duo in the Twin system. And then pitchers of note, former guest of the show, Dason Hill, Adrian Bajorquez, Charlie Soto, currently on the injured list, Cole Peschel, who's working his way back from a season-ending injury last year. And then another guy I'm going to call out is Eli Jones. I've forgotten Eli Jones this draft year. I think it was 2024. But he was the guy. Okay, thank you. He was the guy who I liked quite a bit coming out. I believe it was South Carolina, a ground ball pitcher, and just had a decent uptick in stuff after turning pro. That didn't necessarily translate great into results at Fort Myers, but he took the ball for Cedar Rapids today for the first time this season, or second time maybe, and looked pretty good. So who jumps out to you here, Jeremy? Who should we dig in on?
I don't know that we need to do any digging, but Eduardo Tait is 19 and a half years old. There are no 20-year-olds on the roster. and then at least for hitters, I'm just doing hitters right now. Winokur, 21. McCombs, who you mentioned, is almost 22. And then there are some 22-year-olds on the roster, but the average age of the hitters on that team is 22 and a half years old. So a younger group of prospects. Zhao, you mentioned as a catcher, I believe he played center field this afternoon. Yep. So that speaks to his versatility. We've talked to him a lot. I talked about him a lot. The name that's kind of gonna be an under the radar / if he's not if he doesn't put himself on the radar, probably puts himself out of the organization. And that's infielder Danny DeAndrade, who I believe has the third highest signing bonus of anybody on that roster when he was an international guy at over $2 million. He's been injured. He's shown flashes of production, but just hasn't really taken that next step. And really, to me, this is kind of are you going to get it done at high A and move up, or are we just going to move on from you? So I think he's a guy that has to put himself on the radar, because right now there are so many middle infield types, including Merrick Houston, who is the same age and was just invested a lot more money into and appears to be hitting the ball really well. So that's kind of my under the radar hitter anyway.
Absolutely. We should touch on Merrick Houston a little bit. And again, I'm going to give a plug to an awesome piece of work. So Tom Froming, former guest of this show, put together a Merrick Houston highlights package at Limestone Pipeline, which is just all of his defensive plays from the season so far. Only like 3-4 games. But dude, he is so smooth, man. He is so smooth at shortstop. And the thing that I think people are going to get excited about now is we talked about, like, okay, this is a lock defensively with a pretty questionable offensive profile. Well, in the first 4 games of the season, he's hit a triple, a double, 2 home runs, and looks to be hitting everything hard and taking walks. If Merrick Houston's a good hitter, he's going to be a top 100 prospect pretty fast, in my opinion, because you don't have a ton of elite gloved shortstop prospects that also have some type of offensive ceiling, like he runs well. So that's super, super interesting, of course, and very encouraged, because I think I've been like quite a vocal Merrick Houston doubter. So I was
you've questioned. If not, you've questioned.
Kadeem Zhao was called out by the Cedar Rapids manager, Brian Mayer, as his pick to click for the season. He said he's the prospect he has been by far the most impressed with in spring training. And that would be another boost for the system, right? Because I think we've talked a lot about Eduardo Tait, however exciting he is going to be a slow burn. A healthy Kadeem Zhao, if productive, will finish the season in Double A. Then you're talking about a late 2027 debut, if there's baseball. So Zhao is going to be my pick to click. I just like his offensive tool set overall, especially for a catcher. Really strong, like on base floor, enough power to keep things interesting. Like probably looking at like in the teens in home runs, but probably like a 275 batting average type guy, 12 to 15 steals type guy. I like guys like that can give you a little bit of everything. Of course, even more so if he's playing at a premium defensive position. So he would be my pick to click. I don't know that I have an under the radar guy. How about you? I guess I'll throw one of the pictures.
I'll look at the pitchers here quick. So age-wise, Dason Hill, obviously youngest guy on the pitching side, just a little over 20, turned 20 on Christmas. We should have asked him about having a Christmas birthday.
It's Christmas Day?
That's what I have, 12/25/05. I mean, I could double check that, but
poor planning on our part.
Of all, 12/25/05. Of all the days to be born, that's one I would choose against. So he's 20. Obviously, Charlie Soto, out of sight, out of mind. Charlie Soto is 20 and a half. And then I'm going to steal this from you because this would be your pick to click if you didn't one already. Adrian Bajorquez, the pitcher, 21 years old, just turned 21. And what we've seen, like when he popped up on the Twins player development Twitter, was it last spring or maybe the spring before, where there was some real nasty stuff, and then game wise it was up and down. It's gonna happen here eventually for him. And if you watched last week and Jason Hill talked about him being nasty, and you've talked a lot about what he has skill wise. He's been around long enough now where I think it's like, okay, dude, do it. And I think he will. There are some other exciting names. Michael Carpenter's on the DL or the IL. He's not quite 22 years old.
Yep.
Man, there's a lot of potential for guys, I think, to take steps up. The nice thing is with all the pitchers at AAA right now, it's not going to be a forced thing. They're going to get all the time they need to develop. So, and obviously the Cedar Rapids pitching staff, at the staff above them, below them, that will all change significantly as this year progresses, and you get some of the 27 pitchers on the injured list, the organization healthy again. Yeah. Tanner Hall out for the year, Ross Dunn out for the year. It's just it stinks because you see pitchers that it's like you want to see him, and you're not going to not see him for a month. You're going to not see him for the entire season. So hopefully Soto can get healthy, and the three-headed monster of Soto, Hill, and Bajorquez can light up some radar guns there in Cedar Rapids.
That's a ridiculous rotation. Okay, last but by certainly no means least, Fort Myers Miracle.
Hold on. Let me hit slide so you can see what I did. Because they should still be called the Miracle. Here's the thing about it. Average name, elite logo.
Yeah. That was a very retro, like 90210 style logo situation going on.
Love it.
And look, I can't, like, okay, agree or disagree with this take. It's hard to do a poor minor league like theme, mascot, look. Like, it's hard to mess that up. There's so many good ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Mighty Muscles one is bad. It's just like straight up bad. I don't like it at all.
I agree. When I first heard it, I didn't like it. When I saw it, I liked it less. The more I have to say it, I like it less. Bring back the Miracle. Bring back the palm tree and the M.
I love the Colonels. I love the Saints. I'm less keen on the Wind Surge and the Mighty Muscles, personally.
My favorite hat, I think, in the organization right now is the Saints hat. That's the pig.
I have that.
You have that? You own that hat?
I do own that hat. I'll wear it next week.
You should, because every time I see that hat, I'm like, that's a great look.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, we should go with the players now.
Okay, yeah. We've ranked the logos. Now let's talk about the roster. Okay, outfield prospects of note. Headlined by international guys that we want to see make good. Eduardo Beltre and Yasser Mercedes. Infield prospects of note, Bruin Agbayani, son of Benny, starting the season on the IL with a minor injury, I will note, because some of the guys in Fort Myers do not have minor injuries, but his is, I think, a muscle thing. And Quentin Young, nephew of Delman and Dimitri. We'll talk a bit more about him in a second. Catchers, Enrique Jimenez, starting the season on the IL with a broken thumb, I think. And then pitchers, again, Riley Quick, who has not yet debuted, James Ellwanger, who has debuted, Matt Barr, who has a stress fracture, so was out for a while, Jason Reitz, 6'11", Jason Reitz, starting the season on the IL. Relatively minor for him. And then I added Colton Smith. He is one of the 2025 draftees who was debuted and looked pretty good to me. Was a relief pitcher out of Georgia. So who's standing out to you here, Jeremy, on this? I would say, I think it's fair to say it's like a fairly raw group of players, especially on the hitter side.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this roster, and it's like this would pass for the Gulf Coast League team, right? Of when there was when there was more rosters, more players, you would get your high school guys that maybe wouldn't debut until the next year in the GCL. And so that's like the Bruin Agbayanis of the world, 19 years old. Quentin Young, just a little over 19. Eduardo Beltre, not quite 19 and a half. Jason Bass. I don't know is it Jason Bass? I feel like that's very Americanizing his Mexican heritage, right?
Who?
Jason Bass.
I don't know who that is.
He's an outfielder. He actually was pretty good last year, from what I remember. And so I'll pull him up. 5'11", 165 switch hitter. He's not doing much this year, but start here. Yeah, 253. So not great, but came stateside. Actually, that's not true. Came stateside in 24, played in the FCL. Last year, played in the FCL again, and then made his way up to Fort Myers. Batted 314 in the FCL. Anyway, he's another outfielder along with all of the other international outfielders, and he's younger and kind of came into the organization with little fanfare. One that's interesting to me, and I was going to ask you about this because that's kind of under the radar. Ryan Sprock, who was drafted in the 8th round as not a catcher,
correct,
was listed on the opening day roster as a catcher. I believe he was drafted as a third baseman. If he can be, because he was hitting sprockets, right?
Sprockets,
If he can be serviceable or be an option behind the plate while hitting, I think that's someone that could put himself onto the radar.
I agree.
And so there's a lot of fun names. I talk about Quentin Young all the time because the ceiling is the highest of maybe any hitter this side of Walker Jenkins. Enrique Jimenez was a super fun pickup for Chris Paddock. They've got Acuna on the roster. They've got a Churio on the roster. They've got a Beltran on the roster. Like they've got names that we associate with really good baseball players, whether they're related or not. So, but like you said, it's raw. There is not a lot of proven talent, but they're young. So, Sprock is the name that is under the radar to me. As far as a pick to click, I'm going to go optimistic and say Quentin Young is going to click and is going to prove that we underranked him in the teens and deserves to be in the top 10.
That would be exciting. Yeah, just to add some notes to your guys. Sprock is interesting because he's a little bit like Zhao in that he has that high on base floor. Like he takes plenty of walks. One of the few 2025 draftees that got off to a really good start at the plate last year when he debuted a 130 WRC plus in 23 games, which is exciting. Quentin Young hit his first professional home run this very evening after hitting a triple, so starting to heat up. Annoyingly, one of the only StatCast misreads of the night, so don't have any data on his home run, which is
it's probably because it accurately read that home run opposite field, or at least to the opposite side of dead center, at like 152 miles an hour.
Yeah, there you go.
You'd be right. So
that broke the equipment. No, that was funny because if you watch that home run, the center fielder starts going back very confident that he's going to get the ball. And then he just kind of has this like, realization as he's going back, like, this is just going to keep going and going and going. So Young hit his first home run. He's what'd you say?
In the interest of small sample sizes, though, coming into today, when Young was 1 for 10 with that triple and 6 strikeouts. So
there you go. That's what you're going to get.
Yeah, we got a ways to go.
That's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of strikeouts. You're going to get a lot of power. and that adds up to entertainment. Eduardo Beltre also hit his first home run of the night tonight, 109 off the bat. That one read just fine. So it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of make improvements the second go around. I mean, look, I think health permitting, and that's a huge caveat because it's like 16 guys on the IL. A lot of pitchers are going to move pretty quickly at this level. Like, I would not expect to see much of Riley Quick, James Ellwanger, and Jason Reitz in particular. Ellwanger debuted through 3 or 4 innings, struck out 4 guys, was up to 98. The strikes were is exactly what you would expect. Like he issued a couple of walks and loaded the bases and then struck the next 3 guys out. That's exactly what you're going to see. He's kind of like the kind of pitching equivalent of Quentin Young, which is like the raw tools are so impressive, but can he kind of corral all of that talent and kind of focus it in his performances? Brooks Lee called out and strikes with the bases loaded.
Thanks for doing that for me, because I just saw him follow it off because he's still batting on my TV. Yeah, it's an interesting makeup because I have 11 guys on their injured list for pitchers. The youngest of the pitchers is Matt Barr, who just turned 20. He's on the 60-day IL, like you mentioned. But there's not, I mean, most of these guys, like Riley Quick, he's not quite 22 years old. Ellwanger, not 22. Reitz, not 22. Like these are still pretty young guys.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mentioned the 3 guys at Cedar Rapids, and then it's a lot of like 22 and 23 and 24, a bunch of 27-year-olds. So I think they certainly have time. And if I wouldn't love pitching in the middle of the day in Fort Myers in July, but I also wouldn't like pitching in Cedar Rapids in April. So
they did not look happy. Bohorquez in particular looked very miserable.
Yeah. So I mean, part of me wonders if it's like part of the program where you're going to have them on a cycle, and then you're going to have them on the injured list where you just kind of shut them down and reset and then bring them back. So, because it seems weird to me to have on their entire roster, including their injured list, they have 44 guys. 44. And so, yeah, the other name that's intriguing to me, and he's pitched once this year and wasn't very good, Jonathan Stevens, who didn't really pitch much for Alabama in his whole career, and then pitched a little bit last year, and now is pitching again. The reason he was unique is he hadn't really pitched. The Twins have a really good relationship with drafting Alabama guys, right? Kind of pre-lip Riley Quick. They draft this guy that's basically hasn't pitched, and they sign him, and they kind of throw him into the wolves. So he hasn't done much yet, but there's got to be something there, right? There's a reason that the organization was like, we're going to take a flyer on this guy, and you get him in the organization and get him going. So, yeah, low A baseball, especially when it's the lowest level, is a hodgepodge of everything. Sure. And you throw a lot against the wall, 44 guys, see what sticks, and if it sticks long enough, we'll move them up to Cedar Rapids.
I'm gonna say my under the rate. My pick to click is Jason Reitz because I gotta back my 6'11" guy. And my under the radar guy for Fort Myers is gonna be Bruin Agbayani. Really good hitter, not necessarily a ton of power. I just think he's gonna hit his way out of that level by the end of the season. Really good bat to ball skills. Really controls the strike zone well, and I enjoyed that aspect of the Twins draft. What was he, a 6th rounder, I want to say? Twins don't often take a lot of prep hitters in the 6th round. They're usually done with prep hitters by that point, unless it's like the 19th and 20th rounds, and they're looking at guys who might not, they're kind of taking his insurance. So that does it, dude. We're approaching time here. Any last thoughts before we call it a day?
No, not really. I mean, let's see what happens with this major league team. They've probably won more games than anybody expected them to at this point.
You're gonna be 5-6 if they hold on to this game here.
Got to hold on, right? It got dicey there for a minute, but they got out of it. you'll probably be able to, you'll know if they won before I will, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's early, right? And we try not to make too much of tiny samples, but if you can just string a few wins together, baseball more than anything is mental, right? And if you're winning games and you believe that you're good enough, then by golly, just be good enough. So I'm curious to see how long the roster, though, of the big league team, that 26-man roster, stays before the James Altmans of the world, and the bottom of the bullpen get turned over with some of the names that will be in the next wave. Because, and this is what I was looking at rosters today, and I'm like, man, the average age of things and the prospects that are on their way up, like, it's not crazy to think that the Twins are going to be much more competitive next year. And by the end of 27, like, if the guys that just are expected to be good are just good, that they're going to be a good baseball team. And it's hard to see right now because it's a bunch of, mismatch, but there's just a couple guys that are going to be free agents. Ryan Jeffers, obviously the big one. Taylor Rogers, the other one.
Yep.
Not a single player is like, oh, these guys need to be added to the 40-man. Like, they've pretty much set themselves up. Like, this is what they can move forward with and just improve, and get rid of the flotsam on the roster. They've set themselves up. What I'm saying is, they've set themselves up after all of the crap to be a very competitive baseball team quicker than I think people are anticipating. So they're gonna have to get through. They're gonna have to get through some junk because people aren't gonna show up for the baseball this year, but they might show up for the $2 beers and the $1 hot dogs. So we'll see.
Has Javi Baez led off the bottom of the ninth with a double on your screen yet? Because if not, it's about to happen. Last thing, just got a preview ahead to next week. So I am forcing your hand, you who don't like to talk about the draft much before April. But we got a guest next week. Carlos Collazo of Baseball America will be back with us. And we're going to have a little bit of an earlier than usual conversation about the draft, because while all of the college baseball is still going on, the Twins are picking really high. So we're going to dig in deep with him on some of those candidates. So your Von Lackeys, Justin LeBrons, Jackson Flores, Grady Emerson's, all those guys should be pretty fun.
You just said four names that are probably, if you had to put a percentage on the number 3 pick coming from a group of names, those are the 4 names.
I think so. Today. Yeah.
Today. So there you go. Yeah. Do some research. We'll talk to Carlos next week.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much, as always, for supporting the show. We will catch you next time, hopefully with the Twins sitting at 500 when we record next week. Until then, enjoy the baseball.